Kathrine had always believed that her life was cursed, for from the moment she could remember, she was treated as though she was worth less than the dust on the floor she was forced to clean. Her stepmother barked orders at her from dawn till midnight, her stepsiblings mocked her ragged clothes and empty stomach, and her father, once a strong man, had grown weak, silent, and blind to the cruelty happening under his own roof, leaving her to suffer alone, to sleep on the cold wooden floor with only a thin torn blanket while even the family's dog had a warmer bed. The neighbors saw her, bruised and tired, but chose whispers over help, and in her heart, Kathrine felt she had no place in the world, no one who cared if she lived or died. Each morning began the same: scrubbing, sweeping, washing, and carrying heavy buckets of water, her body aching while the laughter of her stepsiblings echoed in the background as they enjoyed the meals she was forbidden to touch, and each night ended with her collapsing, hungry, her hands raw and bleeding from endless work, her dreams filled with nothing but shadows and silent cries. She often told herself that she was invisible, that she was nothing more than a shadow in her own home, but deep inside she carried a fragile hope that maybe, someday, life would change. That hope was tested the night of the storm, when the sky ripped open with thunder and rain poured down like punishment. Kathrine had been thrown out into the rain by her stepmother for breaking a cheap plate, left to shiver outside while the rest of the family enjoyed the warmth of the fire, and as she stumbled through the muddy road barefoot, her clothes clinging to her trembling body, she collapsed at the corner of a street, soaked and barely conscious. That was when fate intervened in the form of a sleek black car, its headlights slicing through the darkness. Inside sat Armaan Khan, a young yet powerful CEO known for his ruthless business empire, a man who had wealth, respect, and influence, yet carried a cold emptiness within his chest that no deal or contract could fill. He was on his way to an important meeting, his mind sharp and focused as always, until his eyes caught sight of the fragile figure lying motionless on the roadside. Something within him stirred, an unfamiliar ache that pushed him to step out into the rain despite his driver's protest. He approached, his expensive leather shoes sinking into the mud, and as he bent down, Kathrine weakly lifted her head, her eyes meeting his, eyes that told a story of endless suffering, of pain endured silently, but also a flicker of unbroken spirit that shocked him to his core. Without hesitation, he removed his coat and wrapped it around her trembling frame, lifting her gently as though she was made of glass. "You're safe now," he whispered, words he had never spoken to anyone before, words that seemed to surprise even him. Kathrine wanted to resist, to push away, for she had learned long ago that kindness was a trick that always ended in more pain. But exhaustion overtook her and she let her head fall against his chest, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat lulling her into unconsciousness. Armaan carried her into his car, giving orders to his driver to head straight to his mansion, his mind racing with questions he could not answer. Who was this girl? Why was she abandoned in the rain? And why did he feel a strange protectiveness towards her, a feeling he thought he had buried long ago with the memories of his own lonely childhood? When Kathrine awoke, it was to the softness of a bed she could never have imagined, the silk sheets foreign against her skin, the gentle warmth of a fireplace flickering nearby. She bolted upright in panic, convinced she was dreaming or had been kidnapped, but then the door opened and Armaan walked in, carrying a tray of food himself, something no one would believe if they saw. "Eat," he said firmly yet gently, placing the tray before her, the aroma of warm soup and fresh bread overwhelming her senses, her stomach growling in betrayal as she shook her head, whispering that she didn't deserve it. His gaze softened as he sat beside her, lowering his voice. "No one should live the way you have. From today, you will never go hungry again." Kathrine's eyes filled with tears, the walls she had built around her heart trembling under the weight of his sincerity, and though she wanted to believe him, fear gnawed at her. What if this was temporary? What if he too abandoned her once he saw how worthless she was? Yet, as the days passed, Armaan's actions spoke louder than any words. He gave her a room with sunlight streaming through the windows, clothes that fit her properly, and even a small library where she could read in peace. The servants, at first shocked by the presence of a poor girl in the mansion, soon grew fond of her gentle nature, and Kathrine began to taste the life she had always dreamed of, a life where she was treated as a human being, not a burden. Still, shadows of her past haunted her dreams, and one evening, as she sat by the garden fountain, Armaan found her crying softly, her hands shaking as she whispered, "I don't belong here, I'm nothing." He knelt beside her, tilting her chin up so her eyes met his, and with a conviction that startled her, he said, Kathrine, you belong here more than anyone. And as long as I breathe, no one will ever hurt you again." Those words planted the first real seed of hope in her heart, though she did not yet know how fiercely he meant them, nor how soon they would be tested, for the world outside had not forgotten her, and the cruel stepmother who had discarded her like trash was about to return, bringing with her a storm that would challenge everything Armaan had promised. Kathrine's new life in Armaan Khan's mansion felt like a dream she dared not wake from, but even in dreams shadows often creep in, and hers took the form of memories she tried to bury. Her stepmother's sharp voice, the mocking laughter of her stepsiblings, the hunger, the pain, the constant reminder that she was unwanted. At night she would jolt awake, her heart racing, terrified that she would open her eyes and find herself back on the cold floor of her old home. Yet each time the soft silk sheets and the safety of her new room reassured her that this was real, that somehow, against all odds, life had given her another chance. Armaan, true to his word, never treated her as a charity case. Instead, he gave her responsibilities, encouraging her to study, to read, to discover her own strength, and though she was timid at first, Kathrine's natural intelligence and resilience began to shine through, surprising even herself. But Armaan was not only giving her safety. Without realizing it, he was allowing her to heal, to feel seen, and each time he looked at her with that steady gaze that promised protection, she felt the cracks in her broken heart begin to mend. Yet storms were brewing beyond the mansion walls, for word had reached her stepmother that Kathrine had been taken in by a wealthy man, and greed twisted her mind into seeing an opportunity. She had once thrown the girl away like trash, but now she imagined wealth, control, and perhaps blackmail, and so one afternoon, as Kathrine was watering the roses in the garden, a voice she prayed she would never hear again called her name. She froze, the watering can slipping from her hands, as her stepmother stepped forward, feigning tears, her stepsiblings lurking behind with sneers hidden under false smiles. "My poor Kathrine," the woman cried dramatically, "I've been searching everywhere for you. Come home, darling, your family misses you so much." The words were honeyed poison, and though part of Kathrine still trembled at the sound of that voice, another part, stronger now, wanted to run, to scream, to refuse, but before she could speak, Armaan appeared at her side, his presence towering, his hand steady on her shoulder. His voice was calm but edged with steel. "She is not going anywhere with you." The stepmother's face twisted, the fake tears vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. She hissed that Kathrine was her daughter, her responsibility, and that Armaan had no right to keep her. But Armaan did not flinch, his eyes cold as ice as he replied, "You lost that right the day you treated her worse than an animal. From today, she is under my protection, and I do not make promises I cannot keep." Kathrine's heart pounded, tears streaming down her cheeks as she clutched his sleeve, realizing in that moment that he meant every word, that for the first time in her life someone was standing between her and the cruelty that had defined her existence. The stepmother, humiliated and enraged, threatened to take him to court, to spread rumors, to destroy his name, but Armaan, unshaken, simply tightened his hold on Kathrine's hand and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Do your worst, but you will never touch her again." Something in his voice, a blend of authority and unbreakable resolve, silenced even her greedy tongue, and for the first time the woman realized she was up against a force she could not manipulate. She left in fury, dragging her children behind, but not before casting one last venomous glare at Kathrine, a glare that once would have sent her cowering, but now Kathrine stood tall, her hand firmly in Armaan's, her eyes burning not with fear but with a newfound strength. After they left, Kathrine collapsed into his arms, sobbing, all the fear and pain of years spilling out, and Armaan held her tightly, whispering, "It's over now. No one will ever take you from me. You are safe. You are mine to protect." From that day forward, their bond deepened, not just of protector and protected, but of two souls who had both known loneliness and found solace in each other. Armaan introduced her to the world not as a charity case but as someone important to him, giving her dignity in front of people who once would have looked down on her. Kathrine, in turn, blossomed, her laughter returned, her eyes sparkled with life, and her dreams grew larger than survival. She began to envision a future where she could help other girls who had suffered as she had, a future where her story would be one of inspiration rather than despair. And through it all, Armaan remained by her side, his vow etched into every action, every word, until one evening, as the sun set in golden hues across the mansion's terrace, he turned to her, his voice softer than she had ever heard it, and said, "Kathrine, when I first saw you lying on that road, I thought I was saving you. But the truth is, you saved me too, from a life of emptiness. I vow not only to protect you but to walk beside you, forever." Her eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow but of overwhelming gratitude, as she whispered back, "For the first time, I finally believe I deserve to be loved." And in that moment, the poor girl who once lived worse than a dog stood reborn, no longer broken, no longer alone, for she had found not only protection but a family, a future, and a love that would never abandon her again.